like, any more directions? I'm like, there's only one seat left, and here's the candidate there.
I want to acknowledge there is a producer and a writer from Women of Color Unite from two of the films from tonight. Would you two ladies please stand so we can acknowledge you? Awesome. Yay. Tell us what your film was.
Sorry. My name is April Marie Magley, and I was the writer, co-executive producer of hashtag Where Is Me.
Yay.
Yay.
You as well?
Deputy on the other side of the gun, Marlon's writing for the movie, and I'm the producer. We have some of our cast right there, Richie and Cy.
And that's the director as well?
And this is also our
Yay.
he's our DP guy and our editor.
Yay. Before Cheryl starts, I just want to say to all the cast and crew who are here tonight and family and friends, we thank you all for supporting all of the filmmakers up here in our film projects. Thank you so much. We want to give you a hand. Miss Cheryl, take it away.
So you know I was going to do that, right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You didn't have to.
Let me stay in my lane.
Yeah, please stay in your lane. Hi. Do we have any other Women of Color Unite members here? Okay. So, first of all, thank you for doing this, Rachel. Let's give Rachel a hand.
My pleasure.
See what happens when you stay in your lane?
And thank you to LA Film School who
Yes.
is actually sponsoring this event tonight.
Wow. So a couple of those films I've seen before. I've seen the Beauty one before. I can't remember where I saw it, but I know that I saw that one. Of course, I've seen Boxed. Everybody did a great job. So before I ask questions, let's give all of our directors a round of applause, please. So because we only have 37 minutes, probably now closer to 34, I'm going to try to do this well. So I actually told Rachel, I only actually have two questions since I'm going to ask everybody that. So and it's easy enough. Your two questions are, what made you become a director and why this particular project, right? And aren't those two great questions? And I don't have to do anything else. Let's start with, so for those who don't know, Diana Elizabeth Jordan, she is actually one of our disability advocates for Women of Color Unite. And this is the third time I've seen her in a week. Like, we just keep running into each other.
Hi, I'm Diana. I first also want to acknowledge my executive producer, Corey there, and one of our stars, Lily Johnson. I became or added directing. I'm also an actor. I started directing because I like telling people what to do, and no, it actually just became a natural, actual extension of acting. I teach at a place for Lily and work with Lily called Performing Arts Studio West, and we work with actors who have developmental disabilities. So I was directing showcases and directing scenes there. And then I also started to get, a few years ago, I got involved with the ETC Disability Film Challenge, which is a weekend film challenge for artists who had disabilities to create more visibility in front of and behind the camera. I started working with Corey as an actor, and he was directing. Then that in 2018, I was like, Corey, I think I want to direct. And he said, well, if I was like a producer, you direct. And the reason I avoided directing for so long is my sister was a very accomplished director, and I thought you had to be organized. And I told someone, I said, well, I don't direct because I'm not very organized. I told my acting coach. My acting coach was like, who told you you had to be organized? So once I learned I didn't have to be organized, I'm like, oh, cool, I can direct. So I put away my fear of being organized. And it was, this was done for the Agency of Disability Film Challenge last year. Why I did it was I'm passionate about ensuring that inclusive and diverse images of disability are very visible in film and television. I want to do that as an actor, and I also want to do that as a producer and director. And as a producer and director, I can make those decisions that I co-produced this film with Corey. So I could decide, oh, I want to make sure that there are diverse images of disability in this film, and the East of Disability Film Challenge, because that is the mission of the film. It allowed me the opportunity to do that. And also, I call my company Dreaming Big on the Swing Films. And so it is because I used to sit on a swing when I was a little girl and dream about being an actor. So my mission is to always give someone their first opportunity to do a film. And Zuli, I got to do that. It was the first time to be in a film, and she did a great job. So those are the two reasons. One, to increase visibility, and also to always give someone their first opportunity to work on camera.
Well, that was a great answer, and it was funny. Now I know why I have you working as our disability advocate for free. Also, I should tell everybody, Diana and I met years ago when...
I was two. We were two.
Yes, we were two.
Yes.
Diana, well, you were two playing a mother? Okay, Diana. Okay, so Diana was the mother. It was a short film by Julian Breeze, who helped to co-write When They See Us. It was his directorial debut, I believe, a short film.
Yes.
Diana was the mother. I was the line producer, and my PA, who showed up on set in flip-flops, was Ms. Fanchen Cox now, who's development head of development or whatever for Pearl Street, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck's company. So always be nice to people, because you never know. But yeah, she was my PA. Diana was the mom. Yeah. Okay, moving on. Hi, Perez. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
You're good?
I'm good.
Okay, so Jess, I'm going to say something about you and Wanjiru, who's sitting next to you. So the two of them just made a movie, a short film through Fox Digital Studios. You two were the second, well, the first person was the person, you're the next group, but it's three of you. So we were able at Women of Color Unite to get approximately 50 women in the room pitching for these short horror bite content for Fox Digital Studios. And the second one was just made by those two ladies. See, yeah, look at you. You two are they just sitting up here grinning and shit. They forget how hard I had to work to get them the goddamn thing. But all right, we go on.
Oh, no, Cheryl, we haven't slept. This is, we're barely awake.
I know. Actually, I'm very, very proud of the two of you. Okay, now let's talk. Let's see, I can talk about all of you right down the line. Okay.
Oh, so why I wanted to be a director?
Yeah, what made you want to be a director, and then why this piece? Right. What was it spoke to you?
Because I started writing when I was really young, so I didn't even know that there was such a thing called a director. It was just paper and pen and just writing really long-winded stories. And then after a point, you get to understand that there's a next level to this. Okay, it's great that you write it, but somebody made it, so now you have to figure out how to do that. And then so I just went through like the whole theater process of performing on stage and directing on stage. Actually, I started off at Kenyan in Loreto High School, Limuru, doing the drama festivals with 3 women who are here today. One, Chris, Lynn, and Linda. We started off we were in high school in Kenya. So I've been with them since Kenya high school. Wow. And that's where we started learning how to write. Yeah, we're 21. We started learning how to...
Yeah, just a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, just a couple of years ago, yeah. I started learning how to write because you had to do original stuff. You couldn't do any plays, or you had to write all your content. And I just kept moving. I moved to Wisconsin, and I just kept doing the same thing. Then I came to LA, and I was doing plays, and someone told me, you might want to do screenplays because in Los Angeles, that's the market for this. Then just progressed onto that, and then I remember I was doing, with Wanjiru, I was there was this documentary I wanted to do, and I didn't have any money, and I decided to just start. And so my first movie that I ever made was a feature documentary. So that was the first thing I ever did, and so this is the second thing. And the reason I did Glimpse was because I was very interested in, you know, like when people pass, it was a time in our lives, especially we were losing a lot of really close people. My grandfather died, my grandmother died, a dear friend of mine died. And I just wanted to understand loss. Like when people pass, what does it actually mean? Because you know that somebody's gone, I'm going to miss them, but what is it like? When the person leaves, what were they doing in this person's life that now has completely fallen apart? That loss means a lot more than somebody just died. Vacuums were left, and I just was very interested in that, and I wanted to do it with a character who didn't speak. But I wanted the person who's gone to be the person you heard. That's what is gone. I really wanted to deal with it in that way. Yeah.
I did notice, did you notice that, what was it, 3 of the films nobody spoke? I believe Boxed, yours, and Beauty? Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody spoke.
Nobody spoke.
And I personally love that. I used to teach at sort of the rival school for LA Film School. I taught at New York Film Academy. And so that was one of the things that I would tell my students. Like over the years, I think we've fallen in love with dialogue, you know, starting with West Wing and different things like that, like the fast talking and the dialogue and everything. But I try to remind my students that film is a visual medium, right? It's a visual medium. I want to know the story. You have me if I know the story without the dialogue, right? And I think that that's what makes a good piece, regardless of whether you have dialogue. And I always love the films where you really can, you know, sort of concentrate on the visuals. And I just noticed that there was this pattern of having 3 films where nobody spoke. So, for whatever that means, anyway. Wanjiru.
Hi, everyone. I'm Wanjiru. I'm the writer, producer, director of Boxed. Become a filmmaker. I'm the complete opposite. I knew at 8 years old. I didn't know the word for it. So my father was very big on film. When he was in Nairobi University in Kenya, they used to have this once a month outdoor blow-up theater. And so he got a love of film in that. So my dad's an architect, and one of his friends who's Indian was a contractor, but he owned a video library. So we'd always get movies from there. And I remember I saw E.T., the extraterrestrial, and I immediately told my father, I want that, I want to do that, and my dad thought I wanted to be a little shit-looking alien. It took a bit of conversation and me admitting that I actually stole the E.T. VHS because I didn't want to give it back. At 8 years old, I put it in the couch, and really deep in the sides of the couch, we had to take the couch apart to get it. And he just supported me since then. I used to write a lot. As Perez said, there's a very, very big focus on writing in Kenya. And I have a memory, I think I was 11, and my parents got called to the teacher because apparently I'm an overachiever. And the teacher had given us a 4-page assignment to write a composition. I had written 16 pages. And so my parents were called in because I wrote too much. And so my mom turns and she was a teacher. She said, why did you write 16 pages? I said, because the story hadn't ended on page 4. It just didn't make any sense to me to stop writing. So then the natural progression was, you know, my parents supported me. My mom passed away when I was 17, so that had a big influence also. And my dad more or less became my best friend, and he was very supportive. So I went to film school, then I ended up here in LA, and very randomly, through a table read, met Perez, and, you know, it has continued along the way being a relationship. Why this film? I was trying to make a different film, didn't get all the funding for that. Then I was like, what can I make with the money I have in my account right now? But this was actually a conversation by chance. I knew the story, I had forgotten about it. Then I went to an event and I met Karen Parsons, who was Hillary on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and she does, it's on Netflix. If you look it up, it's called Sweet Blackberry. So she tells Black history through animation for children. So she's done Harriet Tubman, Henry Brooks Brown. And as Perez mentioned, you know, we were both at a time where we were dealing with loss. A very good friend of ours had committed suicide, and he was like my big brother, like the closest person I had in LA, and I was really struggling. There was a lot of anger, but I also needed to understand what he did. So when I went home, I was thinking both of him and both of Henry's story, and they were both in boxes and cages. You know, he was a well-known actor, but he wasn't free. And so I went to bed, I woke up at 2:30 and I wrote what I shot. And apart from spell check, I shot the film exactly as I wrote it at 2:30 in the morning. So it was more to tell Henry's story, and I decided, as you said, you know, my dad always says, speak once, listen twice. It's a saying he always tells us, and it helps us mitigate a lot of sibling drama in the family. We have very many siblings, and so, you know, sometimes he just has to like remind you, speak once, listen twice. And so I was just like, I wanted to tell the film, but there have been a lot of slave films, and everyone is always like, oh, another slave film. Like, hello, 200 plus 400 years, and you know, nobody says hello, another Holocaust film. They never verbalize it. So for me, it was important that the audience members were accountable. Like, you were the reason Henry was in the box. Like, you are not going to leave the screen. And I think as a society right now, we've evolved to a point where you will see an evil, and if you don't speak, even if you weren't directly involved, you are accountable for that. So that's why I did it that way.
Wow. There are a couple of themes that are coming up. One has to do with loss, right? That loss is something that spurs us. And let's be honest, we're all sitting here because I lost my mother, right? So my mother passed away in February 2016. And the Women of Color Unite is the nonprofit, but the original thing we did was get together and create the JTC list. It's named after her, Joan Teresa Curtis. So loss can spur all of these kind of things. And like you, my best friend committed suicide, 8 years ago. And he left himself for me to find. I don't wish that on anybody. And so that anger that you're talking about being spurred on, all of those different things, create. There's a saying, my family actually says the same thing, makes us smart, makes us crazy. But it's almost the same thing that makes you creative. Like the same thing that makes you crazy makes you creative. The art coming from pain, the art coming from disabilities, the art coming from that anger of representation. By the way, there was one other thing that I wanted to mention with Diana's film. The disabled are the largest minority, right? Let's not forget that, because especially here in Hollywood, it's you were talking about Black, or we're talking about Latinx or whomever. Let us not forget the disabled are the largest minority with the least amount of representation.
And the least amount of authentic representation, because oftentimes when we are represented, they're played by non-disabled actors. And my friend Christine has a great disability is a lived experience, not a trained skill.
Yeah, ooh, say that again. Yeah, that's something we're gonna have to put on our website.
Yeah, you had to quote my friend Christine, though. It's her quote, but yeah, she allows me to say it. So.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. The other thing that I'm getting are all of these, the idea that it's more than representation matters. It's the fact that we're telling our own stories, right? Hi, Moni.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great. Thank
Sorry.
you so much.
You're welcome. I'm sorry.
Both of you.
I'm sorry I accidentally sent you an email today.
It's okay. I was like, God, did I miss something?
I got a story about everybody today. Shoot. She's like, you just got the email. You're like, I don't think it was meant for me. I was like, oh, yeah, no, sorry about that. Sorry about that.
All good.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having this. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you.
So what made you become a director, and why that piece?
So my name is Moni Vargas, and I'm the writer, producer, director of Audrey's poem. And the reason why I became a director is because I always loved to tell stories visually. And I started off as a photographer in high school, way back when you had to, print your photos in a dark room. and then that, led me to work in as an associate producer like 20 years ago for Travel Channel and Discovery. That's right, 5 years ago. And then, I started doing a lot of work in the industry, but I wasn't connecting to the subject as time went on. So I bought my own camera, and then I started shooting, and then I just started doing my own projects, very much outside of the system. So I've always been independent, and I've always funded my own projects, which is not the way it's done in Hollywood. So I'm still, I'm learning all the time. I'm been doing mostly documentary form and music videos and everything under that short form umbrella. But I really wanted to see if I could dip my foot into narrative and tell a story that with actors and this was it. This was I put aside a couple $1,000 and we shot it in one day, and it's a way to prove it to myself that I could do it. And now I definitely want to continue. I've been writing a few other shorts. But yeah, the reason is I always love telling stories, and especially stories of women. I think that's what's really at the core of it all. And this particular story, Nia, the main character, neither one has ever acted before. It was supposed to be a totally different script. I had to rewrite it the day before because the other actor 2 days before, was unable to do it. And the mom, who's actually her mom, jumped in, and this is based on a true story. So it's really their story, and I feel very honored and blessed that they were willing to share it with me. And neither of them were able to be here tonight, but they were the inspiration behind it. So for anyone out there, you just have to do it. So I'm happy to dip my foot and my toe, I always mess these things up, into narrative and dramatic work. And I'm working on a documentary right now, feature doc and doc series about girls and gender nonconforming youth of color from across the country, and really capturing their stories and telling their stories and filming their stories for a nonprofit in New York. So I would love to talk to you, Cheryl, about having all of our folks join into JTC to WOC. So thank you again for having us.
You're more than welcome. And actually, so after we're done, I actually have an announcement which I will share with you guys. You just can't tell anybody else. But anyway, hey, Rachel.
Hello.
How are you?
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for doing this.
Of course.
And the only reason I agreed to moderate because it's a mile and a half from my house. So you were like, can you do it? And I was like, where? You're like, LA Film School. I was like, yeah, I can do that. As long as I don't have to go a couple more miles from my house on a Friday night, I'm good. Like, I'm real good.
That
Anyway, thank you again for having us.
My
So,
pleasure.
your turn. What made you want to be a director, and why that piece?
It's interesting how I became a director. I'm a graduate of Full Sail University. I went there for my recording arts bachelor's because I'm a songwriter first. That's what I pretty much am. And at the point of graduation, I was maybe like a week away from graduation. Just a bug was just in me about becoming a filmmaker. And I wasn't thinking about it. I said, no, I'm about to get this degree and get up out of here, at Full Sail. And then God just kept talking to me about it. And before I knew it, after I walked the stage to get my degree for my bachelor's, I was enrolling right back into Full Sail for my master's in film. And it just happened within weeks, just like that. So fast forward to class, probably my second class in the program. I'm still new as a film student. And 2 instructors from my recording arts program had approached me about a story. And they said, do you know there's a student here on campus who's living in his car? And I was like, what? Like, you don't think about things like that. Mm-hmm. And come to find out, it was Mr. Wendy. And so it was kind of like our lives are almost parallel, because he had already just graduated with his recording arts as well. And then he had just graduated, or was about to graduate with his master's in film, just like with me. So the stories he and I had were kind of parallel, but what was hitting me in the stomach was, I used to be homeless when I was younger. So it was just like, okay, God, what are you doing here? And so to be approached by my instructors about it, they're like, you need to film this. I'm like, I just started film school. I don't know anything yet. So it's kind of like it was just thrown in my lap to do it. And I felt God pulling at my heartstrings to say, this is why you're here. You're supposed to do this. So no, I didn't know what I was doing. No, I knew nothing about directing. I never directed a film yet. I'm still in film school. But it just happened. So it was just, I prayed on it. And I said, okay, God, whatever you want me to do, I'll make that happen. And you know, as a film student, you don't have money. So it's like, who do I even contact? I just got here. I don't know anybody yet. But the senior classes that were ahead of me, our school is accelerated just like LA Film School. So there's a graduation every month. So we had senior classes ahead of me. And some people from those classes that I talked to about it, they're like, we'll help you. And so my DP, Calvin, shout out to him. He's on the set of Marvel right now filming. He's on the camera team there. But he, along with a few others, they just came together. And then we approached Mr. Wendy about it and asked him, it's very sensitive, of course, you can imagine, asked him would he allow us to film what was going on. And it took a moment. Like, he was like, no, I'm not doing that. So it took like a lot of prayer. I'm like, God, you told me to do this, but he's saying no. So what you want me to do here? And so, you know, fast forward to, he finally came around and he said, you know, Rachel, okay, I'll do this. And that's kind of what happened. And then he shared with us his story, as you can see through this, through how the churches that he was going to and working for, they were paying for his expenses, car insurance, things of that nature. The government, like he said in the film, was taking care of his education, but he had no money, he had no job, so he had nowhere to live. And so he was living out of his car, and the church was paying for his storage, which is where you saw, that's where he gets groomed at. And he was able to somehow get a gym membership, which is where he would shower and clean up and that sort of thing. And I felt I had to do that story because that's just one of a billion stories out there like that. Yeah. So people, myself included, we take for granted the luxuries that we have. And we complain so much about stuff until we see someone else going through way worse than us. There's always somebody doing worse than us, always. So it charged me to stop complaining about the petty, small things, you know? And so I built this relationship with Mr. Wendy. He's an amazing man. He's a God-fearing man. And I just felt like this is what God just wanted me to do. So film and directing, even whether I wanted to do it or not, this is what he said, this is what you're going to be doing. So that's kind of what happened with all of that.
How is Mr. Wendy these days?
He's doing well.
Okay.
He, when he graduated from Full Sail with his master's, he moved to Virginia. He was living out, unfortunately, still in his car at that time. He did share with me that while he was living in a shopping center's parking lot, actually, until he could get himself on his feet. And he told me that a man had approached his car one night and knocked on the window. And the man said, are you living in your car? Because I see you in your car every day. I live across the street. And Mr. Winnie said, yes, I am. I don't have any money. I don't have a job. And so the man said, well, I have an extra room. Ain't nobody living in there. I got space for you. Let's make this happen. And Mr. Winnie moved into the man's home and has since been working for a local church there. And I believe they hired him, and I think he's making some money now. So, yeah.
Oh, wow. Dang. That is beautiful. So I was actually approached by an investor. How can I put this? So they want us, Women of Color Unite, to do an official film festival, and he offered that the winner, he would fund their feature.
Hello.
And this actually relates to everything that you guys just did. The one thing that I've noticed throughout all of these films was they were authentic. And I constantly tell people, because for those who don't know, I speak out a lot about the injustices in Hollywood to the point where nobody will hire me anymore, but anyway. But even in a new article regarding Harvey Weinstein, there were only 2 of us who went on record. I noticed both of us were women of color who went on record. And I say that to say, but when you constantly tell your authentic truth. When you are who you are, this person just approached me and they're like, yeah, I like what you do. I like what you say. It's a man of color. And he's like, I think that let's showcase it and so forth and so on. And I was like, well, I went to AFI. I was like, I get an alumni discount? Like we could have it there? Like a day, maybe 2 days? He's like, yeah, and for the winner, and I thought he was gonna say, yeah, I'll give him $5,000, $10,000. He's like, I'll fund a feature. I was like, oh shit. I was like, okay. I was like, you do realize that this means that this is gonna be a lot of work and like we're gonna do something that, is there another film festival that when you win, somebody funds a feature of yours?
I've never heard of that.
That's historic.
Yeah, here we go
That's a
again.
first.
Yeah, we keep doing this and we keep doing this. But I say that to say, constantly tell your truth. Filmmaking is about telling truths, right? And representation matters, and more than representation matters. Like Diana said, you need to be the one to tell your story, right? I mean, I think one of the problems, Wanjiru, when you said earlier about slave films, I think one of the reasons that we have problems with it, because I, as a Black American, yeah, sometimes I get tired of it. But it's not, and I realized one thing, it's not that I'm really tired of it, I'm tired of white folks telling the story. Right? Like when I saw Boxed, it didn't bother me. And I could feel who it came, not just knowing you, but you feel the difference, right? You feel the difference when you watch something, and even if you are represented on the screen, it feels different. Like, because you know, those weren't the people behind the camera. Like, they can stick us up on screen all they want. But there's this feeling of, I think, disconnect to a certain extent.
You're actually tapping. I screened on Tuesday to the Broad Institute, and one woman told me when the email went out, come see this film for Black History, she hesitated at first. And the first thing she said to me was, thank you, you educated me, you didn't traumatize me. It wasn't for entertainment, and that statement shook me to my core. She said, you made me him, you educated me, and she said, I always feel, I didn't set out to manipulate, like it was literally me dealing with the pain I was dealing with. I was angry at my friend. I was angry for a year. I didn't make a film for a year. I didn't write, I was that angry at him, like, how dare you leave? But then I had to, my family always says, you may not like each other, but you have to love each other. Whew. There've been some angry moments where you're forced to hug your sibling, but you have to, and in that moment you let it go. So for me, I had to make this film with love, because it was also me letting go of him as well. So that's the way that's definitely helped me tell it in a different way. But the fact that she said I educated her and I did not traumatize her, that to me is a very humbling message from someone who saw the film.
That thing about traumatizing people, I think it's the same, and Diana and I've talked about this, like, what is it, disability porn? When the idea that you're making somebody else's trauma, it's almost like you do it on purpose, like, you know what I'm saying?
Well, a lot of disability porn kind of refers to those inspirational stories. That's the only story we can tell.
Inspirational.
As opposed to really the true complexity of our humanity. If anyone goes on my Facebook page, you'll see 95% of my posts are about my nephews. Why? Because I'm a very proud aunt. And that's who I am. I'm an aunt, I'm a friend, I'm a this. Disability is part of who I am, but I think when it comes to disability, that always becomes the story of it. There's nothing else we can tell. Or it has to be overcoming an inspirational, as opposed to someone being a jerk or someone being, just that just being part of who we are. Also, that comes amazing color inside of them. It's just that thing that identifies us, that marginalizes us, whatever that is, usually becomes what our story is. Right. And there's no other stories we're asked to tell or allowed to tell, as opposed to the complexity of who each of us are.
Yep.
Okay,
No
I
one
think
can tell your story better than you.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely nobody can tell the story better than you. Oh, okay. I didn't know we were going to take questions, but I'll take one question right now.
No, it wasn't that. It wasn't. They were not included. This is the Women of Color Unite members. Is. I'm sorry. I think he needs to hear you say that. That's what he's asking.
Oh,
Her answer is right there. She just.
she's not the director. That's why she's not up here.
No, sir.
No, they're all directors. This was.
It's
That's okay. He's like he's family. He's
I like
where's
that.
it?
I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. He's holding us to the
Nobody know
fire.
whole
He's
damn
like
family who gonna do it.
my
I like
cousin.
it.
Dang it. That's all right.
That's all right.
I ain't mad at that. Okay, so it is 10 o'clock. We're gonna so that everybody can, sort of mix and mingle a little bit. Oh yeah, that thing that I just told you about the film festival, that's all between us. I don't want to hear it on social media, anything, until we have it finalized. Because trust me, I was in shock. I was like, you want to do what now? Shit. That's going to be a lot of work for me. Okay. So, because we announced that, you know how many films I'm going to get in? It's going to be people begging and crying and anyway. But actually, I'm looking forward to it because, we always, Women of Color Unite, you know how we roll. We do some stuff a lot different. One thing that I will say also in this film is, in all of the films, I noticed that we were fighting a lot of other isms like colorism and sizeism and all of that. This was a wonderful representation of Women of Color Unite and what we always say, we leave no marginalized group behind, right? We all rise together because it's like one and the other that don't work. What works is linking arms and all going forward at the exact same time. So on that note, let's have another round of applause for our directors. Another round of applause for Rachel for putting this all together.
I have to share this with Shonda, the events team, as well as marketing and Los Angeles Film School again.
Yeah, I was just about to say, and thank you, Los Angeles Film School, for having it. That's it. I'm going home because it's 1.5 miles from my house.
We will have another one next month, the date to be determined, so stay tuned. Thank you.